Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. All right, Dolphins fans, buckle up, because the Miami Dolphins just made a sneaky but potentially impactful move that could end up being one of those quiet mid-season additions we talk about for years. You know the type, the kind that doesn't light up headlines on day one, but months later, everyone's like, wait, where did this guy even come from? Well, let's talk about the newest face in the aqua and orange. Edge defender Andre Carter II, freshly plucked from the Detroit Lions practice squad. And yeah, this move came right on the heels of Miami trading Jaelan Phillips, a transaction that left a noticeable gap on the edge and a lot of fans wondering how the Dolphins would respond. Instead of promoting from within, they looked outside, and now the spotlight shifts to a young man who's already taken one of the most unusual paths to an NFL roster you'll ever hear about. Now, first things first, this Andre Carter is not the same Andre Carter who played defensive line in the early 2000s and later became an NFL coach. Nope, this is Andre Carter II, the Army standout, the 6'7", 260-pound freak of nature who exploded onto the college scene with a monster junior year that had scouts drooling. He's raw, sure, but the tools are there, and you can see why the Dolphins wanted to take a chance on him. What's even more interesting is that Miami had two edge defenders on their own practice squad, Quentin Bell and Derek McClendon, and they passed on both. That's not a random decision. When a front office like Miami's, led by Chris Grier and head coach Mike McDaniel, bypasses internal options to go fishing in someone else's practice squad, it usually means they see something special, something unique. They saw enough in Carter to think he could be more than just a depth body. They see potential, and potential is something the Dolphins coaching staff has shown they know how to cultivate. So who is Andre Carter II really? Let's rewind a bit. Carter was undrafted out of Army, which already makes him a special story. Players coming out of military academies face extra hurdles, not just physically but administratively, because of service commitments and the rare path they take to reach the NFL. Carter managed to balance that reality and still put up ridiculous numbers during his time at West Point. His junior season in 2021 was nothing short of jaw-dropping, 16.5 sacks, second only to Will Anderson Jr., who, as we all know, became a top 3 pick for the Houston Texans. That's elite company. Carter was everywhere that season, using his long frame and explosive first step to terrorize quarterbacks across the FBS. But like many rising stars, his senior season wasn't as smooth. Injuries slowed him down, his numbers dipped to just 3.5 sacks, and suddenly, that first-round buzz faded into uncertainty. Still, scouts saw enough to believe that with time and the right development, he could be a legitimate NFL contributor. After going undrafted, Carter didn't give up. He latched onto the Minnesota Vikings in 2023, appearing in 12 games, mostly on special teams, and showed flashes of what he could become. In 2024, he got another shot with the Las Vegas Raiders, playing in 3 games, again primarily in a rotational and special teams capacity. Across those 15 games in the NFL, Carter logged 149 of his 233 career snaps on special teams, meaning coaches already trusted his effort, motor, and discipline enough to put him in high-energy, high-accountability situations. And while his stat sheet might not look glamorous, just half a sack so far in his career, coming in Week 17 last season against the Saints, that's not the point. For a player like Carter, it's not about what he's done yet. It's about what he could do once given real snaps, real development, and real coaching in a system that fits his physical profile. Speaking of fit, let's talk about why this move makes sense for Miami. The Dolphins' edge room now includes Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, Matthew Judon, and Cameron Good, with Carter now joining that mix. On paper, that's a pretty versatile lineup. You've got veterans like Chubb and Judon who know the grind, the technique, the angles, and then you've got young guys like Robinson and Carter who bring raw athleticism and energy. Carter, in particular, fits the archetype of what defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver likes: long, rangy, explosive defenders who can play multiple roles depending on down and distance. At the Combine earlier this year, scouts described him as a 3-4 rush linebacker on passing downs who could develop into an every-down player with more growth, both physically and technically. That's Dolphins territory right there. They love hybrid players who can stand up, move around, and create mismatches. But the real test for Carter will be mental, learning a new system mid-season, earning trust in a locker room already deep with talent, and proving that he's more than just a practice squad body. It's not easy. But one thing about Carter that jumps off every scouting report is his discipline and resilience, traits that come naturally to someone who trained in a military environment. The man understands work ethic, structure, and adversity. And if there's one thing this Miami defense thrives on, it's energy and accountability. Carter's got both in spades. If he can absorb Weaver's system quickly and flash even 50% of what he showed in that junior year at Army, he could become a hidden gem in this defense. And it's worth noting that the Dolphins didn't just add Carter to fill a roster number. They're clearly trying to keep their defensive rotation fresh and unpredictable, especially with the way the AFC is shaping up. With teams like the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens all relying on mobile quarterbacks, you can never have too many fresh legs chasing the edge. The Dolphins have been strategic in balancing their roster between veterans who can hold the line and younger players who can provide bursts of speed and creativity. Carter fits the latter perfectly. His get-off, his ability to bend around the edge, and his frame make him a matchup nightmare when he gets leverage. And if he can start to refine his hand usage, something scouts noted he still needs to develop, he could be a serious threat by his third season, just as his NFL.com draft profile predicted. Now, while Carter is the headline addition, the Dolphins weren't done tweaking their roster this week. They also filled out their practice squad with a name you might want to keep in your back pocket: Clarence Lewis, a cornerback who's been grinding his way up the ranks. Lewis, who signed as an undrafted free agent with the Tennessee Titans earlier this year, is an intriguing player. He spent most of his college career at Notre Dame, racking up experience: 51 games, 23 starts, and over 120 tackles, before transferring to Syracuse for his final season, where he became a full-time starter. There, he posted 41 tackles, 12 pass breakups, and an interception. Those are solid numbers in the ACC, and they tell you this guy knows how to stay active around the ball. The Dolphins reportedly brought in 4 corners for workouts: B.J. Adams, M.J. Devonshire, D.J. James, and Lewis. But it was Lewis who earned the call. That speaks volumes. Miami's decision to sign Lewis adds another layer of depth to a secondary that's been tested by injuries in recent years. He's not a guaranteed roster riser, but the Dolphins have a long history of developing undrafted talent. Think about players like Kader Kohou, who came out of nowhere and became a key contributor. Lewis could be the next in line if he takes advantage of his reps. His combination of experience, tackling consistency, and ball awareness could make him valuable, especially in special teams or nickel packages. When you zoom out and look at both moves, adding Carter to the 53-man roster and Lewis to the practice squad, you start to see a pattern. The Dolphins are not just reacting to roster changes. They're anticipating the grind of the second half of the season. They're thinking about January, about playoff football, about depth when injuries pile up, and every snap matters. Carter gives them insurance on the edge and maybe a developmental piece for the future. Lewis gives them a fresh, hungry body in the secondary, someone who can step in if things get thin. These are the kind of moves championship teams make, the ones that don't necessarily make ESPN's front page, but make all the difference when you're chasing a Super Bowl. And here's the thing. Andre Carter II might not be a household name yet, but every star has a starting point. For him, this could be it. The Dolphins see something in him, something that made them skip over their own guys and bring him in from Detroit. Maybe it's that combination of length and discipline. Maybe it's the flashes of pass rush brilliance he showed at Army. Maybe it's just gut instinct from a front office that's gotten more things right than wrong in recent years. Whatever it is, one thing's certain: the Dolphins believe Andre Carter II is worth the risk. And if he hits, if he can even come close to that 16.5 sack monster we saw in college, Miami might have just pulled off one of the sneakiest steals of the season. Go with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? The era of TYREEK Hill in Miami is reportedly over. That's right. Behind the closed doors, in quiet meetings and internal strategy sessions, the decision has already been made. TYREEK Hill will no longer be a Dolphin. The news hasn't yet been officially confirmed by the team, but sources close to the organization suggest that Miami is ready to move on from one of its most electric offensive weapons of the past few seasons. It's the kind of shakeup that sends ripples through a franchise, one that forces fans, analysts, and rival teams to rethink what the Dolphins' offense looks like going forward. Rumors are swirling about what prompted this seismic shift, and while nothing is set in stone publicly, insiders hint that the reasons are as much about strategy and locker room dynamics as they are about salary cap considerations. TYREEK Hill, of course, is a game-changer on the field. His speed, his ability to stretch defenses, and his knack for making the impossible catches look routine have made him a household name. But the business of the NFL is brutal, and Miami appears willing to take the calculated risk of parting ways with a player who has been central to their game plan, all in pursuit of a vision that could potentially take them even further. There's chatter that the Dolphins front office has been quietly weighing the pros and cons of retaining Hill for months. On one hand, Hill's impact on the field is undeniable. He can turn any play into a highlight reel moment, forcing defenses to game plan specifically for him every week. On the other hand, the financial realities of the NFL, combined with the emergence of other offensive talents in Miami, may have created a situation where the team feels they can reallocate resources more efficiently. Think about it. TYREEK Hill commands one of the higher salaries for wide receivers in the league, and every dollar spent on him is a dollar not spent elsewhere. It's a delicate balancing act. Reports suggest that the Dolphins have been eyeing younger, more cost-effective players and potential draft picks, aiming to build depth and versatility in a roster that could survive even if it loses one of its marquee names. The whispers around the league point to a scenario where Miami is trying to pivot toward a more sustainable long-term approach, one that doesn't hinge entirely on the brilliance of a single playmaker, even if that player happens to be TYREEK Hill. Sources close to the Dolphins' locker room indicate that the decision wasn't easy. Players, coaches, and staff alike have a tremendous amount of respect for Hill, not just for his on-field production, but for his work ethic and the infectious energy he brings to the team. He has been described as a transformative presence, someone who elevates the performance of those around him simply by being himself. And yet, in the high-stakes world of professional football, respect alone can't dictate personnel decisions. Miami's management is reportedly looking at the bigger picture, analyzing roster flexibility, cap space, and the evolving offensive philosophy that could define the team for years to come. The narrative that emerges from these behind-the-scenes discussions paints a picture of a franchise willing to make bold, even controversial moves in pursuit of a championship. There's no guarantee this will pay off, and fans may understandably feel a pang of disappointment or even betrayal at the thought of seeing Hill in another uniform next season. But insiders suggest that this is a calculated risk, one that could open doors for a more balanced, multidimensional Dolphins offense that doesn't rely solely on the explosiveness of one receiver. Adding fuel to the rumor mill, there are whispers about potential landing spots for Hill once he officially departs Miami. Several teams reportedly have expressed interest in a player of his caliber, and the thought of TYREEK Hill suiting up for another franchise has already sent shockwaves through fantasy football circles and NFL commentary alike. While it's too early to confirm any trade packages, draft pick swaps, or free agent signings, speculation is already heating up. Analysts are debating whether Hill would be better served joining a team with an established quarterback and a high-powered offense, or whether a franchise willing to rebuild around his unique talents could offer a more lucrative and strategically advantageous environment. Meanwhile, Miami fans are left to process what this means for their team, their beloved quarterback, and the offensive identity that he'll help define. The ripple effects are far-reaching. Coaching strategies will have to be adjusted, game plans rewritten, and the chemistry of the locker room reshaped without Hill's presence on Sundays. Every team in the division, every opponent, will also be watching closely, trying to figure out if this marks the beginning of a new chapter for the Dolphins or a potential gamble that could backfire spectacularly. Rumors of tension between front office decisions and coaching preferences have also surfaced. It's not unusual in the NFL for disagreements to arise behind the scenes, where the personnel department and the coaching staff may have different visions for the team's trajectory. While nothing has been publicly confirmed, sources suggest that these internal dynamics could have played a role in the decision to part ways with Hill. Some reports hint at subtle disagreements over offensive schemes, usage patterns, and how Hill's skill set fits into the broader, long-term vision for Miami football. These are delicate conversations, the kind that rarely see the light of day but can heavily influence big-picture decision-making. The Dolphins, it seems, opted for a course that prioritizes flexibility and future planning over immediate gratification, a move that reflects both ambition and pragmatism. It's the kind of decision that, in retrospect, might be viewed as genius or miscalculated, depending entirely on how the next season unfolds. Of course, fans and commentators alike are weighing in on social media and sports networks, spinning their own narratives around this development. There's no shortage of speculation about what this means for the quarterback, the rest of the receiving core, and the team's playoff chances. Some argue that Miami is losing a player who can single-handedly change the outcome of games, while others suggest this could be a moment of reinvention, where the Dolphins redefine their identity and build a more balanced, unpredictable offense. One thing is certain: the departure of TYREEK Hill would mark the end of an era in Miami, a chapter that saw electrifying plays, record-breaking moments, and a sense of excitement that only a player of Hill's caliber can bring. The storylines are endless, the debates heated, and the anticipation palpable. As rumors continue to swirl and insiders drop hints about trades, releases, and potential signings, the Dolphins fanbase is bracing for a transformation that will be felt not just on the field, but in the very culture of the team. Looking ahead, the move could reshape the Dolphins' strategic landscape in profound ways. Removing Hill from the roster may free up cap space, allowing the team to target multiple positions and increase depth across the board. It could give younger receivers a chance to step into the spotlight and prove themselves, or even open the door for a high-profile acquisition that could shift the balance of power in the AFC. Conversely, the immediate absence of Hill's explosiveness presents a challenge. Defenses no longer need to account for his speed, potentially giving them an edge over Miami's offense if adjustments aren't made swiftly. The coaching staff faces a critical task: reinventing offensive schemes, distributing targets more evenly, and ensuring the team retains its competitive edge. It's a delicate balance between embracing opportunity and mitigating risk, and the next few months will reveal whether the Dolphins' bold decision will pay dividends or leave fans longing for the electrifying plays that Hill consistently delivered. As the NFL rumor mill churns, one thing is clear: TYREEK Hill's time in Miami is teetering on the edge of finality. Behind closed doors, decisions have been made, whispers have been exchanged, and strategies recalibrated. While the public waits for official confirmation, the narrative is already shaping itself. The Dolphins are moving forward, perhaps in a direction that some may question, but one that reflects the harsh realities and high-stakes calculations of professional football. Whether Hill lands with a rival, a team in desperate need of a game-changing receiver, or finds a new home in a completely different system, the storylines promise to dominate headlines and social media feeds for weeks to come. For fans, the end of TYREEK Hill in Miami signals not just the departure of a superstar, but the beginning of a chapter defined by reinvention, risk, and the relentless pursuit of a vision that goes beyond individual brilliance. The rumors are real, the buzz is palpable, and the Dolphins, and the league, will never look at wide receiver play the same way again. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.